my whole goal is to help people feel more insourced, like they're insourcing before they're outsourcing. Like, should I get this toy? Should I go
Hmm.
to this doctor? Should I do this? And the chance to like really feel like you have this connection to self allows you to feel so confident in your decision that anything else is just like, advice or suggestions that you know what's
Hmm.
best for you, not to that. And so being able to say, no, nobody is the authority of any woman's health except for you. You are the best healer, authority, like decision maker in your health if you are connected enough and grounded enough in who you are to be able to make those decisions.
I'm Rachel, and you're listening to the Owning Your Sexual Self podcast. I just love when I can record episodes with some of my friends and colleagues and other people that are in this space of sexuality and coaching and just mindfulness. I I just adore this. How lucky am I as a human to have people like Shannon in my life, honestly. Shannon is the guest on today's episode, and she and I met through the wonderful world of peer romance years ago, serving both as consultants, board of director members, and being able to travel, go on all sorts of things together, all sorts of retreats and conferences and all things like that. And then her and I both kind of jumped into the space of sex coaching around the same time and started creating programs. And Shannon really found her niche, which is this topic that we're discussing today, which is the topic of midlife magic. As someone, I guess we would put her in her midlife era, if you will, and so she can speak, definitely to the personal side of this. And I'm so inspired by Shannon. I'm so excited to get into her story today a little bit more. But I'm continuously just amazed at seeing what she's doing and seeing how many people she's helping in this world through her work of somatics and sexuality and just the intention that she brings to the work that she does. So a little bit about Shannon. She has spent the past 2 decades shedding light on sexual health through her presentations, coaching, and transformative retreats. As a midlife coach and somatic practitioner, she guides women and couples in understanding how to support the nervous system, which or what to expect during the transition of menopause, perimenopause, and how to build emotional resilience. Shannon is a graduate of UT Chattanooga with a degree in human development, and she earned her sexual health educator certification from Indiana University with a focus on the menopause transition. Her biggest teacher has been the challenging yet rewarding experiences of her journey going through perimenopause as herself, parenting, and her marriage of almost 20 years that was close to ending at the 16-year mark. And if you look back into the podcast episodes here, sometimes people, when you listen to the show, you just jump to the most recent episode. But I urge you, strongly, strongly urge you to scroll back. This must have been maybe 2022, I would say. So maybe look around like episode 100. I wish I could give you the exact episode. We'll link it in the show notes for you to find it. But I had Shannon and her husband on the show. And I even just thinking back to this episode, I can't even believe it was that long ago. But I remember getting emotional on this episode because they shared their story around this when, after 16 years of marriage, they felt like they were ready to throw in the towel. They felt like they had hit their wits' ends. They felt so disconnected from self, from their marriage, just like very stuck. And in that episode, they share really how they came out of that and the raw honesty and vulnerability that it took for them, and just radical ownership that it took of them each to do the work. And now, as you just heard, they're now going on 20 years of marriage, which is just incredible. And that's something that you hear often in our society today. So, anyways, my final words on Shannon. She is in the waiting room, waiting anxiously, I'm sure, to pop in and get this conversation started. With a passion for helping women, Shannon's mission is that all humans will learn how to feel safe in their bodies, have autonomy in decision making, and have relationships full of joy and connection while still being able to navigate the challenges that life brings. Because don't we all know there's always going to be a challenge? I hope you liked my little accent there. I don't know where that came from, but anyways, let's get this show on the road. Let's let Shannon into the room. I am so excited to have her back on the show. Thank you for listening. Let's get to it. Hi, Shannon. Thank you so much for coming back on the show and talking with me today.
Oh my gosh, Rachel, I've been so looking forward to this. Has it been 3 years since I was on the last one?
I mentioned that episode and when I was recording your intro, because I was like, I think it was maybe like 2022. It might have been 2021. I don't know. But I told listeners, like, you guys need to go back and to listen to this because in your bio, I was like, where how you share relationship marriage almost ended at 16 years. Now you guys are going on 20 years. And that podcast, like, even just thinking about it now, is like, I remember I got so emotional hearing your guys' stories. Like, people have to go back and listen to that.
Yes. Oh, and it feels like so much has changed and shifted and we're still together, but
Hmm.
I think about that and I think the tone of that episode was like, we did it. And I just laugh because it's like we did what like we still are working through challenges. It's so much more confidently and clearly. And
Yeah.
like compassion that we have for each other has just grown since then. So I'm so glad
Hmm.
that you mentioned that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
funny just that. So Danny and I have started. There's a book. I feel like I'm just telling everybody about this book, but The Inner Work of Relationships. A couple that I follow on Instagram, they wrote their first book was Do the Inner Work, which I started some of that on my own during my own personal journey, and then their newest one, Inner Work of Relationships, just came out, and it's more of like a yogic approach, like very spiritual, very intentional, very conscious, brings in the mental health capacity of it. Anyways, all that to say, we are doing so on our No TV Tuesdays. We're sitting down and we're doing a chapter a night, and it was so sweet. Tuesday was New Year's Eve as we're recording this, so we did it last night on Thursday, and we're like reading to each other, which felt like very erotic and sweet, and it was very cool. But why was I just sharing this? Oh, when we were having that conversation, one of the things that came up was like the work is never done. Right. So when you just said that, like, we did it, it's like, I feel like the celebration needs to be we're doing it
Yeah.
because it is constant. And I tell clients that often, like, I wish I could tell you you're going to get to a point where it's like, yeah, I've conquered this. Cause it just always seems like, I feel like when we heal from something, that gives us space for, like, okay, here's this thing now. Like, what are we going to do about this? And
Mhm.
yeah, just to be, I know we're talking midlife magic today, but just for a person to be willing to like surrender and step up to that task and that feat, like, I just think it takes a brave person to do this type of work, you know?
Very sexy when they do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like
Yes.
knowing that when there's expansion, like there was so much expansion that last time that I talked with you because we both learned to be in our bodies. We both were going through some of this midlife process.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 49 now, so I was 45, so I was in the height of perimenopause, which the onset of that is typically around 41. It's the average age. It's like a decade long. So we're at the height of that, and I feel like we found this rhythm of like still having the hills and valleys, but they are just so much more further apart. And we know exactly how to support ourselves, first of all, and then each other through that process. So we are doing it, but there are still moments where I'm like, are we though?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like, is this enough? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Are we doing this right? I think is yeah, am I sharing too much or am I not sharing enough? And yeah, as our chapter last night was, right, like what are your, because the book, it gives you all these trigger warnings, like this could cause you to choose to end your relationship. This could cause like feelings of like one partner is outgrowing the other. This could cause, right, like it's meant to really crack you open and be raw and real with each other. So it's like you might hear something that you can't forgive, for or aren't willing to forgive rather. And so yeah, it's just like even that, and like there's journal prompts at the end, but sharing our fears with each other, it's like damn, like even to be able to hold that, for your partner to share
Yeah.
that fear and like to hear them in that
Hmm.
is yeah, like I tell people all the time, like that's vulnerability, that's emotional intimacy. That and like we fucked so hard after that, right? Like because all of that like emotional, like I love you, I feel you energy
Yes.
was present and it was
Yeah.
just wonderful.
Yeah. Bring it all to the surface. That's wonderful. I think that's like the foundation of what I want to share about this midlife experience is being able to
Hmm.
share vulnerably and let your nervous system feel that. Let your nervous system feel the fear of the potential mishaps, failures, loss that you're going to have because for this midlife experience, we are holding on to so much. Like if you can imagine yourself, at 40, 41, where you're like, okay, I've got this rhythm down and I'm doing the things, I've got my job, I've got my kids, but it seems like life continues to add things to our plate. And so this perimenopause stage is a chance to release what's no longer serving you and get to look at like, is this really who you are? Is this adding value to your life? And if not, you can let go of that. And there is a
Hmm.
part of that of like, well, what if I let go of this and everything falls apart. And
Yeah.
being able to hold that discomfort can be powerful in the experience of understanding how to trust yourself and having confidence as you move forward.
Hmm.
I love that y'all are doing this in your 30s.
Yeah, yeah. Paving the way, if you will. Yeah, I hope that when we're in our 40s and 50s, like it maybe feels easier. I think for both of us, like I would I would describe our first 7, 8 years of marriage, like, oh, and here my husband is calling me now, of course. His ears must be ringing. Uh, I describe that as like surface level, right? We are in our early 20s, just like living the party life, doing the things, like yeah, not having, even before marriage, like not having those real in-depth conversations like we are today, you know. Neither of us had been in therapy at that point yet in our lives. Like, yeah, it just looks so different now.
Yeah.
So, and I think like one thing to note here when I work with a lot of people that are perimenopause or have gone through menopause already, and I feel like in society that it's like menopause is like this dark cloud of like it's over, right? Like shit is
Mhm.
changing and it's changing for the worse, and you're not gonna love yourself, and you're gonna have brain fog, and you're gonna forget things, and you're not gonna have a sex drive, and you're gonna think you're fucking crazy. Like just the
Mhm.
messages around it are so negative like a lot of the times, right? It's like very much like buckle up, get ready, you know? And
Yeah,
from your experience, like it can be that certainly if you subscribe to those beliefs, but I think our conversation is going into the flow of like if you are intentional, if you're conscious around this, it can really be magic, right? Like this more beautiful experience.
absolutely. Yeah, if you Google, this is an interesting little experiment to play. Google the words pregnancy, and you'll see all of these beautiful, like angelic pictures of women pre predominantly white, which is fascinating too. But
Mm,
these pictures of women that are pregnant and they're glowing, and all this information, a wealth of information, almost too much. So for people that have gone through pregnancy, I imagine you've had those experiences, and then getting to this stage of late 30s, early 40s, and trying to figure out what's going on with your body during perimenopause, menopause. There are these images of women that are like pulling their hair out,
mm,
and they're like gray, and back in the 90s and early 2000s, maybe 80s, golden girls, we think golden girls is
mm,
midlife, but the narrative around that is shifting. We see more women that are embracing and embodying who they're meant to be during the stage. And so I started to look for those people because as a sexual health educator, you and I both know we've had a lot of questions about what do I do when I am pregnant? Is it okay to use a lubricant when I'm pregnant? And then I started to
mm,
get a lot of questions during that 40s era where
mhm,
I noticed that my body odor started to change, and I can list some of the symptoms that may show up just so you can be aware. But I noticed that my memory was kind of lapsing a little bit, like words that were easier were not as easy. My emotions were intensified. So as you're in perimenopause, it mimics a lot of the same energy as the luteal phase right before you start
mm,
your period. So
mhm,
your boundaries are announcing themselves a little more clearly and
mhm,
intensely. And some people notice that they have weight gain without changes in their diet. They have heightened anxiety. And again, we start to have so much that we're holding on to that something's got to be released, something's got to go. And so
mhm,
when I started Googling for information about 8 years ago, like what's happening in my body, I was floored to see the information that I found because it was all negative. It was pointing me to Botox parties, and which
mhm,
Botox is great. If that's something that you choose, wonderful. But I encourage people to start from a foundation of already feeling confident and sexy in their body despite needing to add more to their plate of more financial and like go and get your hair done and dyed and all of those things, great options.
mhm,
So when I started to notice these things and started to notice those messages, it was another like alarm bell. And I don't know if you've had this happen, Rachel, where through this process of becoming a sexual health educator and a therapist, I'm not a therapist, but you are. I'm a somatic coach and sex and relationship coach. But through that process, I start to see like, is this these messages like, is this true? Like, is
mhm,
it true that sex is
mhm,
just for the man? Is it true that women don't have orgasms as much as men? Like those little messages of like, is this true? Is this true for me? And then being able to rewrite that narrative of what sex and intimacy looks like for me. So I did the same with menopause. I was like, who are the people, who are the women that are embodying this, embracing this, and tapping into this like wisdom and this like sage but still sensual energy, and what could it be for me? And so I started looking for those people, and I started looking for women like yourself. I mean, you were a huge
Mm,
part of this journey too, Rachel, where the younger women were saying it doesn't have to be the way that it was for you Gen Xers. And I was like, teach
mm,
me your ways, millennials, because you all were encouraging me to ask for what I'm worth. And you were talking about things about using your voice. And, it was like,
mm,
well, how does that even work? So starting to surround myself with people that had a different, it was a midlife discovery and not midlife misery or midlife crisis.
mm. Yeah. Because I think it's like if you think about, right, our younger selves going through puberty, right, getting boobs for the first time, getting your period for the first time, like all of these newer things happening in your body changing, that wasn't all great, you know? And so, but you embrace it, you accept it. And again, it like such a young mind. But you're right, it's so many people feeding you, this is what to expect, this is what you need to know, or on the other hand, not telling you shit about it, you know? And so I am in a way glad for menopause specific things. Like there is information out there. I just like, can we make it less scary? I think is
Mhm.
the important part. And so you were already talking about like going within, connecting with self. Like what does that look like for a person? What sort of yeah, like what do you have for us around that? What practices do you
Yeah.
have?
Yeah, lots of practices. So I think the most important thing you talked about going through period or puberty and getting our periods is identifying what did you learn then and what are you lacking from that experience. So what sexual health information did you need to know? What did you learn about your period? Because all this is very important. You're going through reverse puberty,
Hmm.
perimenopause. So you're like rewinding or unraveling a little bit. And there's some titration that has to happen with your nervous system and your knowledge and your understanding of what was. And when a lot of us didn't have a foundation of understanding our bodies or feeling safe in our bodies, understanding our nervous system and how we can use our periods and our menstrual cycle as a guide to know what it is that we need, this is the time to go back and learn. And it's a lot
Hmm.
of fun with women that are my age because they have, some of them have kids that are going through puberty right now. So they
Hmm.
get to say, especially I live in Tennessee, so I live in the South, and if we had any sex ed at all, it was around abstinence. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the stories that I've heard from someone is that they were 17 and Chick-fil-A sponsored a purity, like if you
God.
sign this, then you get a free chicken biscuit. And this woman said, I was so confused because I had already had sex at the time. So I was like, well, I've already had sex. So can I still get a chicken biscuit if I sign this? Like there were so many questions around what this looks like. And
Oh
feeling
my
shame that
gosh.
they didn't get the chicken biscuit because then everybody got, who got their chicken. Like, yeah, it was just the whole confusing time already to be
Wow.
going through puberty. So being able to look at the things that you didn't learn and share this with your kids. I
Hmm.
didn't get to learn this stuff, so I want to have these conversations with you, and it's not like forcing them, but just slowly dropping little seeds and little knowledge of like, what is it that you've heard about your period at school? Are they teaching you
Hmm.
anything about that? And there's a lot of great websites and books that I encourage people to get to reparent yourself, reteach yourself about your body, about the period. So that's the first thing. I would reparent, reteach yourself. And
Hmm.
the second thing is doing more of that inner child work because at this point in time, you can identify patterns that you learned as a child to feel safe and feel loved that now show up when you're in overwhelm. It's called the five personality patterns. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it's by a psychotherapist named Stephen Kessler. And it's helpful to understand, there's five different patterns and they show up when we are in overwhelm and it was adopted when we were kids. So it's not who we are, but it's what we learned.
Hmm.
Being able to notice like, oh, I leave energetically when I feel uncomfortable around people that have big energies and there's chaos. And that is the leaving pattern. And then the merging pattern is where you merge with others to feel a heart connection, to feel loved, or maybe you take care of others so that you feel like you are loved and not replaceable. Like, okay, I have a place in the tribe if I continue to take care of my little brother and sister. And when you feel that loss of heart connection, it can be kind of scary. So being like, what else can I do to help you? What else can I do to help you? And for women that are in their 40s and 50s, it's like we don't have the space to have these patterns anymore because energetically we need to release some of these things and change them and feel more confident. And we don't have anything to lose. We can take care of ourselves, right? So we don't have to rely on others to take care of ourselves. We don't have to rely on others to feel happy and content. And so it's learning, how do I get to that place of confidence and clarity and love for myself and like connecting with that inner child that took on these patterns to feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
There's the leaving, merging. There's also the enduring. A lot of people learn to just endure whatever was happening. Like the energy is in and down. I'll just battle through it. You can like feel those people that run enduring patterns because they feel like they're not going anywhere. They feel like they're just solid and they often
Mm-hmm.
feel like they're stuck, like there's something missing. And then there's the aggressive pattern, and that's where people's energy is really big. They feel like they have to control the situation. And then the last one is the rigid pattern. And the rigid pattern is checking off all the boxes to get the degree, run the marathon, do CrossFit, get the levels done, in the MLM business, direct sales business
Mm-hmm.
that we were
Mm-hmm.
in. Very good setup for people
Mm.
that run the rigid pattern. Like, what next level
Yeah.
do I have to get to? Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
And so they often are left feeling empty and like they have a loss of sense of self. All the patterns do when they've been running these patterns to feel safe and loved in their body.
Well,
So,
fuck, you just like named my whole last 3 years like rigid. Like yeah, here I am. I'm like, can I change the pattern? Like,
yeah.
do I have to go back to being rigid? Because I really don't want to.
Well, there's gifts in all of the patterns, and it's
Mm,
learning to embody those gifts and to see the old patterns pop up, but then say, like finding the ways to support your nervous system. Because when your nervous system isn't overwhelmed, that's when we go into the patterns. That's where our heart starts to race, our palms get sweaty, we leave our bodies energetically. Like there's a number of different things that happen with the nervous system when it's dysregulated. So I don't like to use the word regulate our nervous system, but supporting our nervous system can
mm,
be like this fuel tank, or the window of tolerance is another. I forget who used that metaphor, but the more your window is open, the more capacity you have to deal with life and the messiness of being a human. But
mm-hmm,
the more things that happen, like you get a flat tire, you have a breakup, you've got your kid that's being expelled from school, like there's different things that start to close that window where you're like, I don't have anything else available. This window is closing.
mm-hmm,
And my husband and I can now witness each other in that window of tolerance and be like, how can I support you right now? Do you need some time by yourself? Or noticing when my window of tolerance is starting to close and saying, you know what, I'm gonna pause life for a minute and go for a hike. I need to get some sunshine and I need to get some fresh air.
mm-hmm,
There's a
mm-hmm,
lot of different things that can help that. So backing up, I'm going through a lot of stuff, Rachel. So pause me at all if you need me to. But the first thing was reparenting and reteaching yourself, right? And the
mm-hmm,
second thing is connecting with that inner child through a lot of different ways. But the 5 personality patterns has been super supportive to notice patterns that show up so that you can be like, oh wait, there's
mm-hmm,
my little one trying to appease others again when really she just needs to take a nap
mm-hmm.
or
Yeah.
she just needs some time to breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of that is like looking back. I think it was Bryn that took me through an exercise of this, like looking back, um, of like picturing myself as a kid, like in my room, and I was feeling upset. And like, what did I need? Like, what did I want to do in that time?
Mhm.
And right, like it was like I needed a hug, or I needed to color, or I wanted to, depending on age, like I wanted to put my headphones on and like listen to my CDs. I wanted to do makeup or like fun things with my hair. And then as an adult, doing those same things. Like, what did I do as a child that was, I'll use air quotes, like healthy to soothe myself? Um, and right, like incorporating more of that. So it's like, yeah, I created a coloring book. Like I color, I read, I listen to music, take a bath. Like I do all these things to, or eat a candy apple. Like I'm huge into candy, which isn't the best things, but doing those things that like that bring joy and that bring like play back into my life. And it just feels, yeah, it just feels so good. And I think as adults, we get away from that. Like we get into the autopilot, we get into where I've shared earlier, like I'm very type A. I like the systems, I like the structure, but I know there's so much good that can come when I take myself out of that. And
Mhm.
my sister re-entering my life a couple years was like, that was the slap in the face for me. Like she was this fun, bubble, light energy, like just very adventurous and creative and exploratory. And here I was like in my rigid pattern, like deep in the pure romance life. Like I gotta book all the parties and do all the things and right. And then she's like, let's go for a walk. Like, I found this place that's around the block from your house that has like a swing. And I'm like, what? Like there's a swing around the block? I had no idea. And it's like, yeah, she was the one really, like she started that for me, taking me out of some of those patterns, which it's wild to be able to look back on some of that stuff.
Yes. Oh, what a
Mm.
gift.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
looking for those people and looking for that community that is playing. This past year, you just mentioned this post that I did about this past year where
Yeah.
I was looking for community because I had such a beautiful community online, like with the certification program that I did, the TCS mastery program with other coaches. We have connections worldwide that have been so supportive, and it's really cool to watch how we're all starting these communities where we live. So my intention this past year was to find those people that are playing, to find community and create community. And I have been amazed at all the fun things that are going on that people are like, come join us. Like I've been doing Brazilian Zouk dance and acro yoga. I got myself a new pair of roller skates because I used to roller skate a ton when I was in middle school and like elementary school. So yes, playing, even if it looks like just taking some bubbles outside and taking a little break and blowing bubbles, but there are a lot of people that are offering these ways of playing, and that feeds into not only your connection and intimacy with yourself, but your sex life will and start to incorporate this playtime as well, if you allow.
Mm-hmm.
And that can
Mm-hmm.
add so much value and a change in your perspective as it relates to sex and intimacy. Like it doesn't have to look the same way. It can
Mm-hmm.
change a lot of different ways with lots of this. Like ironically, that's the stuff we were talking about through pure romance. But if we have the lens of like, we have to do it this way and we have to get to this next level, it takes away from the message.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I love that now my whole goal is to help people feel more insourced, like they're insourcing before they're outsourcing. Like, should I get this toy? Should I go
Mm-hmm.
to this doctor? Should I do this? And the chance to like really feel like you have this connection to self allows you to feel so confident in your decision that anything else is just like advice or suggestions, but you know what's
Mm-hmm.
best for you. Because at this age, Rachel, it is wild how targeted this age is. Like people
Mm.
are realizing, oh, boomers, Gen Xers, they have money. That you need this supplement, you need to do this, you need to do that. We are the authorities in women's health. Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Love
Mm-hmm.
that. And so being able to say, no, nobody is the authority of any woman's health except for you.
Mm-hmm.
You are the best healer, authority, like decision maker in your health
Mm-hmm.
if you are connected enough and grounded enough in who you are to be able to make those decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree because I that was a big shift for me too in getting into this work and coming from like the product sales side of it. There's right somebody that often we come across women like I'm not in the mood, low desire, low libido, disconnection to my partner, all these things, and we would be like, here, try this product, right? Like this, and it felt looking back now like, and I'm not discounting that. Like I think yes, definitely there are products, there are things out there that you can use, and in branching in more into this work, I realize it's so much deeper than a cream that I can sell you, right? Or a piece of lingerie that I can sell you. And
Yeah.
it's that might be that band-aid fix that might be like get you through for a period of time and work for a period of time. But I love that you just said that like insourcing instead of outsourcing. There's deeper work. There is more to uncover, to understanding and figuring out why those
Mhm.
things are happening or how those things are happening, how you can do things differently, how you can know yourself and love yourself differently.
Yes. And
Yeah.
also, I think it's important to have the awareness that midlife and menopause hasn't had access to much magic or growth potential. Like it was considered a disease at best back
Mm,
in the 1800s, even 1900s. Like
hmm.
there was a lot going on that was not. I'm laughing because the 1900s weren't that long ago, it feels like to me.
Yeah.
But they had back in the day, it was very much outsourced. They were using cow ovaries and testicular juice and vaginal injections with lead, acetate, and they were using like things for enemas. They were trying to make things go away. They were trying to
Hmm.
make symptoms go away. And if you think about menopause, it is a natural transition in life, but biologically, I don't think we were meant to be alive this long. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
people days, it was a survival situation and you had to stay with your tribe. You were looking for things to eat. And that was like primarily, you were like looking for shelter. And that was like the primary goal. Now we've added to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and there's so much more that we need. And self-actualization is a part of that. And being able to know um, that we are moving forward, but also biologically, we need support from things like HRT, and we need nervous system support, and we need to have an understanding of how our body works. So
Hmm.
that's part of the conversation right now in this is like with HRT, back to the history, there was a time where in the early 2000s they did a study for women, and I don't have all the information signed up or pulled up here, but just
Hmm.
an overview. And this is also in a great documentary called The M Factor, M as in
Oh,
menopause.
yes.
And it's on PBS, you can watch it for free, but it really sheds light on the fact that there have been very few studies that have been done with this with women, first of all, because women were hard to do studies on because of the changes in hormones.
Hmm.
And so they did do a study on HRT, hormone replacement therapy for women, but when they did it, it was the early 2000s, and they did it on women. The age range was so wide, and the findings were that HRT causes breast cancer. Well, a lot of these women were in their 60s and 70s, way postmenopausal, because the average age of menopause, which is the 365th day of your last period, since you've had a period, and that's usually about age 51. So when they did these studies with women in their 60s, they were postmenopausal. And if there was going to be an onset of cancer, that could have been from something else and not HRT. Does
Hmm.
that make
Hmm.
sense?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
they posted this big study, and the message was HRT makes you get cancer or
Yeah.
will cause cancer.
Yeah.
And that was a devastating research finding, and the way that it was marketed, because it kept a lot of our grandmothers, our parents from getting the support that they needed during that time.
Mm.
And now there's much more research being done on it, and the word's starting to get out. Like
Yeah.
HRT is not bad. There are some specifications of who it works for and when it's best. But finding someone that is menopause certified is crucial to have these conversations, because most OBGYNs get very limited hours in the field of menopause.
Hmm. Yeah, and I tell clients all the time, same thing. Like, get somebody that knows menopause and listen, do your research before, right? Like, listen to the podcast or read the books that are honing in on these topics, and then go talk to your doctor so you feel well equipped to having that conversation. And then, if you hear something that isn't in alignment with what you know to be true for yourself, find a different doctor. And I think that's something so hard for people because whether it's guilt, time, commitment, energy, like all these things, um, it's like, well, I'm already here, might as well go with this person. It's like, no, like,
Mhm.
do yourself the favor and find the other person, like drive a little bit farther if you have to. Likely these appointments aren't going to be weekly things that you're attending, right? Like, yeah, I think that people, yeah, if they can empower themselves and advocate for themselves in that space, I think it pays off tenfold for them.
And if you look for the Menopause Society certified providers, that's a great place to start. And there are,
Mm-hmm.
like, my local nurse practitioner has started her own practice because she saw the way that people were filtering through and just being kind of pushed aside, or just kind of like we used to hear in the shopping room at Pure Romance parties a lot, that the doctor would say, just drink a glass of wine and relax,
Mm-hmm.
as far as
Very
trying to,
dismissed.
yeah,
Yeah.
dismiss. Thank you.
Yeah.
See, there's
Mm-hmm.
those words I'm looking for. And being able to know who has done this work and is familiar with it is super important. And then also being able to find communities that are talking about it, like looking for the women that are, like I was saying, I was looking for the women that looked like they were having a good time. They were satisfied with life. They seemed like they were comfortable in their body. It didn't matter what their bodies looked like. It
Mm-hmm.
was they seemed confident and clear, and that the energy that I felt from these women was like, okay, I can trust this person. So learning to find those people to connect with has been supportive as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, definitely a message coming through, for this episode of like finding your community, other women that are going through menopause, but specifically women that, and I don't want to say that, I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but like women that are not subscribing to the this sucks, this is the worst thing that ever happened to me, and I'm just gonna accept that. Like women that are willing to do the work and like wanting to try the new thing. So, a buddy that's like, yeah, let's meet up once a week and go for a walk at the nature park, or right, like let's go try the painting with a twist for the first time, right? Like the motivational friends, like the friends that want to do the work with you. And then right, like and then yeah, in healthcare advocating, listening to the podcast, like listening to sex positive menopause specific people. We'll say
Mhm.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are Facebook groups because when I was looking, there were Facebook groups like that where I was like,
Hmm.
okay, no one's sharing anything positive.
Hmm.
Or it seemed like it. The majority of it was very negative. So I would then look for other avenues to go into. So look for, the Misery Loves Company is still a thing for sure. And
Hmm.
I'm going to start doing some midlife magic get-togethers in my community. So
Oh,
I want to
love
encourage
it.
other people to do that wherever you are. But hiking,
Yeah.
I've got a pole dancing instructor that's going to do a fun class with us to teach us how to, be embodied and dance in our
Mhm.
sensual selves. And we're going to do some workshops, some like conscious sexuality stuff, roller
Hmm.
skating. So I'm really excited about those experiences. And also just noting that there is misinformation out there
Hmm.
on Instagram, on wherever you're subscribing. So just making sure that you take note of these things, like you were saying, have a list of questions for your doctor. That's a great idea, especially as it relates to people trying to sell supplements or people trying to tell you to do these homeopathic things that you're like, this does not sound right. So
Hmm.
being able to like parse through what's real and what's not is
Hmm.
helpful.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there like menopause related books that you suggest for people, or any good ones that you know of?
Yes. Yes. Well, the M Factor is a really good go-to because that's
Mm.
the movie that I was sharing with you. It's on pbs.org and it's a documentary. It is a little fear, like it's like any good documentary that's like going to cause you to go into action because there is some
Hmm.
fear stuff behind it. Wise Power is a great book by Shawnee and Alexandra, and they run the Red School in England.
Hmm.
And their whole perspective on the menstrual cycle, understanding your cycle as it moves into this transition in life for menopause, like the spiritual connection to that and the spiritual overview is so beautiful. I love that book. And it just talks about this transition in life. Also, Sexually Woke is a good book. I'm looking at my books from across the room.
Hmm.
Sexually Woke is a great book by a doctor who now has her own practice in Houston, Texas. Oh goodness, I forget her name, but that's a good one. And I can list some more for you that you can put in the show notes.
Sure. Yeah.
There's like the Menopause Manifesto. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, there are a lot of great books. And I have a midlife magic resource page that I can share.
Yeah.
That's like different people to follow. Kelly Casperson is a doctor, and she is in that M Factor movie, and she talks about the importance of testosterone and brain
Mm.
health. And
Hmm.
she's like on this mission because with as it relates to insurance, you're talking about trying to find someone that takes insurance and getting like HRT. It is devastating. It really is
Yeah.
because there are men that can get Viagra with no problem, but for women who need just basic support to feel healthy and feel like sane,
Hmm.
because the
Hmm.
levels of their testosterone or estrogen are all over the place. It's just sad that we can't get that support. So there's a lot of hoops
Hmm.
that you have to jump through sometimes to get that through
Hmm.
insurance, if
Hmm.
at all.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
wonderful. We can link that into the show
Mhm.
notes. I know listeners are always loving like the resources and the books and the recommendations and things like that. I know myself when I consume podcasts, I'm always geeking out over what can I do next, right? That probably
Mhm.
is my rigid pattern.
Yeah, what's the next right thing to do? Yeah.
Yes,
Let's
exactly.
take right and
Exactly.
wrong. What if there was no right or wrong, Rachel? What would you do?
Hmm. Yeah, I'll get back to you on that.
Okay, let me know.
That was one of my in our journaling last night. We had to write down what unhealthy patterns are we breaking up with?
Mhm.
Because that again, that's like the first chapter of this book, and that was one of my things, like the need to be in control or to be right or to have things go
Oh,
my way. Like I
yes.
have to, yeah, I need to that.
With that awareness, Rachel, I'm just one of the things that people who run the rigid pattern do is they use that as like a, almost think of it as like another wall between your ability to love with full capacity, like loving abundantly.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
what would happen if you softened, like how can you soften a little bit more every day and tap into that, like almost like closing your eyes and taking a few deep breaths. You can do this now with me if you want to, but
Hmm. Hmm.
taking a few deep breaths and like imagining little Rachel, and this is great for people going through menopause too, but imagining like little Rachel in that heart space and being
Hmm.
able to like send her love and just seeing that little face between the ages of like 7 and 10,
Hmm.
where she maybe learned this pattern to do things right, to do things correctly. And just saying out loud, just a moment of gratitude, just being like, thank you. Thank you to this version of me who took on this role to feel loved, feel safe, and it worked. But you no longer need that anymore.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then
Yeah.
just
And that's, I try not to, yeah, I try not to shame that part of me. I was listening to the book, No Bad Parts recently. And
Mhm,
that came up. It says like, yeah, I think back to again like those corporate and MLM days, and it's like that served me for a long time, right? Like I learned so much about myself. I grew so much as a person through that time, and now right now I'm in this phase of life where it's like I don't want to go back to that. Like I think of that as like, yeah, that was fun then, but like that's not where I'm at now, you know. And
mhm.
yeah, we I think I shared, and you also mentioned the just the identity crisis that comes up around that. It's um yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And those are all things that I have no doubt you were saying at the beginning of the episode that you hope that you and Danny will be in a more easeful place when you're in your
Hmm.
40s. And I have no
Hmm.
doubt you will, because you're doing this work now, because this is exactly what I do with women who I work with, is being able to tap into that version and to be able to say thank you to all the versions. Like we revisit the wild 20 something and the teen who is practicing relationships and messing up, and now being able to say, okay, how are you going to mess up now and still continue to love yourself? Because we're literally like fucking around and trying to find things out, right? Like
Literally, yes.
seriously, it's time. If you haven't already, it is time to just take that on as a mantra and see what works for you. It makes you feel safe in your body. It makes you feel loved, and like you know, the ability to create that kind of I guess like approach in life allows you to feel fully the pendulum swing of like feeling the sadness and the depth of grief and loss and whatever you are holding on to from being a human and experiencing human things that maybe you haven't touched on in a while. So as you soften
Hmm.
the heart, you start to feel and like hold yourself in that, and your capacity to do that only allows you to have that pendulum swing to the other side of expansion and being able to fully feel the beauty of like the clouds that are rolling in past my window right now, and the
Hmm.
trees that are bare and blowing in the wind, swaying in the wind a little bit. And
Hmm.
that's the beauty of being able to hold both. So for some people that are like, I don't want to feel those icky feelings, well, what if they are just unpleasant feelings that you get to have the capacity to learn to hold and get curious with, and then
Hmm.
able to let them roll through you, whether it's through crying or sadness or journaling, and then also holding the beauty of life, of being able to breathe and
Hmm.
snuggle with your dog, whatever it looks like,
Hmm.
and holding
Yeah.
both is like the duality perspective of really feeling that, not just saying it, like it can be both, but feeling that like
Hmm. Yeah.
discomfort, but
Yeah.
also capacity too.
Yeah, and when you're speaking to that, it's like really being intentional around those things. And I often, share with people, I'm like, if you like developing your self-awareness and being able to pause, like for myself in those moments where I find myself like trying to gain control or that needing to be right and or whatever it might be, it's like being able to pause in the moment and be like, okay, stop. This is right. This is not what I want. This is not the version of me that I want to be right now. But being able to backtrack and be like, okay, what else is going on in like my own narrative or in my own life that I'm needing this control? Like, what
Mhm.
am I actually unhappy with, or what am I myself not dealing with that now I'm projecting this need for control onto you or onto the situation? And that's
Mhm.
hard. That's hard to do. I realize that it is hard to do. And I definitely think it's a skill that you develop over time. And it's a difficult skill to have to literally look at yourself and like crack yourself open in that way. But again, well worth it on what's on the other side of that, you know?
Oh my gosh. Yes. And are you open to a suggestion?
Sure, yeah.
What may support you a little bit better in saying stop is like having that mantra of, I love big, I love abundantly, I am softening every day. So the minute that you do have that, like, stop,
Hmm.
imagine like little Rachel, and you're like, stop, don't do that. And she's like, but that's all I know, So if
Hmm.
you can say, soften, or I've got you, imagining that that's what she wants, because kind of like the law, whatever it's called, like it's another word I can't remember right now. But what you think about, you bring about. So if you're
Hmm.
thinking,
Hmm.
stop ruminating, stop being rigid, then all your mind is going to hear, all your body's going to hear is like the rigid part.
Hmm.
So being able to say, softening, I'm allowing,
Hmm.
surrendering,
Hmm.
all of those things that are your vocabulary, like the things that you're doing, can help you move towards that a lot quicker.
Hmm. Yeah, like I'm choosing something different.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
like that. I like
yeah,
that.
because you're
Thank you.
you're already aware, which is fantastic. The second part of healing is accepting where you're at, and then the
Hmm.
third part is like getting to the root of where that happened. But you
Hmm.
can't get to the root if you're thinking about not doing it.
Yes, that makes sense. That makes
Yeah,
sense. Mm,
yeah,
so good.
that's a whole nother podcast about the
Everyone
healing.
needs a Shannon in their life.
Oh my gosh, everyone needs a Rachel in their life. Are you kidding me? Again, I'm
We're
gonna
a
give.
package deal. You can have both of us for the low, low price of.
I know, I'm so grateful for you. I've shared this with you before, but I want to make sure your listeners know, like, I am so grateful that despite feeling like you are rigid, you still have this, like, I'm gonna fucking do this energy, and I love that about you. So
Mm,
that is the gift of the rigid pattern. Like, I'm going to fucking do this, but also allowing at the same time. And I'm so glad that you did, because it's just created this whole world of expansion for me through our
mm,
work together, and learning how you got certified, and connecting with the beautiful people that you have connected
mm,
me with, like Alexa and Bryn, and it led me to TCS and Anat Perry,
mhm.
where I'm doing a lot of my work with retreats and all of that now. So I'm so
Yeah.
great.
Mm, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
And yeah, as we're coming to an end, like, so people want to know you. People want to be in your space. How do they find you? How do they follow you? How do they find out about these retreats and events you're doing?
My website and my Instagram are the same. It's Shannon Hamaker. So SHANNONHAM as in Mary, AKER.com. And I post a lot of stuff on Instagram and Facebook, because my Gen X ladies are still alive and thriving on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I do have two women's retreats a year, and I have a couples retreat coming up. We have one more spot left at the end of February. And then I have two women's retreats, one in April and one in September in Tennessee, outside of the Smoky Mountains. And
Mm,
we'd love to see you. They're small in number, so usually about 8 women. And this
hmm.
past that we did were all women over 40, over 42, I think. So it's
Wow.
a great space to
Yeah.
have that learning together.
Yes. So good. So, so good. Well, thank
Mhm.
you, Shannon, so much for shedding some light on this topic of midlife magic. I thought this was a very nice, refreshing conversation. Feel motivated, ready for my 41 to come up in the next couple of years. Like,
Good.
I feel
You'll
good.
be so ready. So ready.
Yes.
Thank you so
Yes.
much, Rachel.
Of course.
Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you loved it, be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And if you really fucking loved it, make sure to tag me on social media at @TheRachelMain. I'll see you next week.